So welcome you all for today's 14th session, 15th I think, 15 on the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Nature, Enjoyer and Consciousness. We'll begin with the recitation of this chapter.
अथ त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव क्षेत्रं क्षेत्रज्ञमेव च एतद्वेदितुमिच्छामि ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं च केशव। श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञमिति तद्विदः। क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत। क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोः ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम। तत्क्षेत्रं यच्च यादृक् च यद्विकारि यतश्च यत् स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च तत्समासेन मे शृणु। ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतं छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः। महाभूतान्यहङ्कारो बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः। इच्छा द्वेषः सुखं दुःखं सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः। एतत् क्षेत्रम् क्षेत्रमित्यमित्यविद्विदः। क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भूतान्यहङ्कारो एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेनानुदर्शनम्। तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वमरतिर्जनसंसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वं तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम्। एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तमज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते। अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते। सर्वतः पाणिपादं तत्सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखम्। सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति। सर्वेन्द्रियगुणाभासं सर्वेन्द्रियविवर्जितम्। असक्तं सर्वभृच्चैव निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च। बहिरन्तश्च भूतानामचरं चरमेव च। सूक्ष्मत्वात्तदविज्ञेयं दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत्। अविभक्तं च भूतेषु विभक्तमिव च स्थितम् भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयं ग्रसिष्णुप्रभविष्णु च ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिस्तमसः परमुच्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यं हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितम् इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्त एतद्विज्ञाय मद्भावायोपपद्यते प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विध्यनादि उभावपि विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान् कार्यकारणकर्तृत्वे हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणान् कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य सदसद्यो निजन्मसु उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयोऽभिजायते ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन च परे अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमम् क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ समं सर्वेषु भूतेषु तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरम् विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तं यः पश्यति स पश्यति समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरम् न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं ततो याति परां गतिम् प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यः पश्यति तथात्मानमकर्तारं स पश्यति यदा भूतपृथग्भावमेकस्थमनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारं ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्म्यादाकाशं नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमं रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवमन्तरं ज्ञानचक्षुषा भूतप्रकृतिमोक्षं च ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम् ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगो नाम त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः।
So we welcome you all once again for the 15th session of the course on life lesson from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, entitled Nature, Enjoyer and Consciousness. We'll begin with the invocation. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakthurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanushruti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpata Rubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we have completed 12 chapters. Now onwards, most of the chapters are small except the last chapter. And can you see my screen, Prabhu? I'm sharing.
Yes, Prabhu.
So till now, first 6 chapters were related to Karma Yoga. How to attain perfection through work by culmination in devotion. Similarly, the middle 6 chapters were talking about Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters are talking about how one can attain devotion through knowledge. So we see some people, they attain devotion through work, and some people attain devotion through knowledge, or both. But ultimately, it should lead to devotion that we saw in the middle 6 chapters. Now, this chapter entitled Kshetra Kshetrajna, the nature and the enjoyer and consciousness. So Arjuna begins this chapter by asking 6 important questions about Prakriti. Prakriti means this material nature, or it can refer to the body, because our knowledge of this material nature comes because we have a body. The world we are experiencing is possible because I am having a body. So that is the first Prakriti. Next is Purusha. Purusha means enjoyer. We are trying to enjoy with the help of the body and things related to the body. And then the third is about Kshetra, that is the field of activities. Actually, it refers to the body, the Purusha. And then Kshetrajna means the knower or the conscious entity. Conscious entity is the living entity as well as the supreme soul. So basically, unless you, supposing you have a gadget, unless you know how to use it, you can't get the best out of it. Similarly, the person who is having a body, he should know the importance of the soul which is maintaining the body. That is Kshetrajna. And Jnana means knowledge. And what is the object of knowledge? Supposing I have some knowledge, it is useful when I know how to use that knowledge or where to use that knowledge. So all these subjects are being discussed in this 13th chapter, beginning with these questions of Arjuna. Thereafter, Krishna describes about Kshetra, that is the body. Kshetrajna means it can refer to the person who knows about the body. That is the soul living in the body, and as well as the super soul, who is the expansion of Lord Krishna, who both know the body. And Jnana means perfect knowledge. What is perfect knowledge will be explained by Krishna in this chapter. And Krishna promised to explain 6 topics about Kshetra and Kshetrajna and courts authorities. So whatever questions Arjuna is asking, Krishna is going to reply to that. And not only his opinion, but based on the authorities. So because someone may not accept Krishna as God, so therefore Krishna allows them to accept the scriptures. Now, then Krishna talks about the composition, qualities, changes, and origin of the body. Because unless we know our body, we cannot understand those things related to the body. Because as I said in the beginning, the world around us, we are able to experience with the help of the body. So that is the connection we have with the world around us, or whatever living entities are around us. So just like supposing I want to see on this laptop something across the world, then I should know first of all how to use this. Then only I can see what is beyond where I'm staying. And so he talks about the composition, what is it made of, what are its qualities, what are the changes that happen with the body, how the body comes into existence. And then he's talking about jnanam, the process of acquiring knowledge. How do we use this body to acquire knowledge about the world, other living entities, and about the soul and the super soul? Therefore, Krishna says there are 20 elements of knowledge, which means if you don't know these three things, these 20 things, and if you think that I have achieved some knowledge, that is incomplete. These are the basic ingredients of a learned person. Basically, he talks about humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, and so on. He describes what are the qualities one should possess in order to acquire knowledge in this world. And Nyaya means object of knowledge. Having achieved this knowledge, how do we utilize or apply that knowledge? And what is the purpose of acquiring this knowledge? Supposing you enroll yourself in a course, you are told in the beginning, what is the benefit of doing this course? So the soul and super soul are objects of knowledge. In other words, one who has attained a body, with that body, he should ultimately come to know that he is the soul and that there's a super soul who is accompanying him. And he particularly talks about the qualities of the super soul, why we will see. Then he talks about Prakriti, Purusha, and how this living entity, which is conscious, and how this material nature, which is not conscious, how they are staying together. These are actually totally different entities. One is conscious, one is not conscious. But how they are, how come, why they have to come together? And that is being explained. How is it possible? Prakriti, nature, and Purusha. Purusha means one who is trying to enjoy. How does he enjoy? Through knowledge. So unless you have knowledge of, supposing I give a child this laptop, he will not enjoy with it because he doesn't know about it. But since I know how to use this or what is it for, then I can benefit from it or enjoy through it. So the living entity is trying to enjoy with the body, which is a part of material nature, and both are eternal. In other words, the living entity and material nature are always going to exist. And when these two come together, sometimes there's happiness, sometimes there's distress. So Prakriti causes all the material causes and effects. So for every thing we observe around us, there's a cause and effect. Sometimes the effect is already there in the cause. For example, you know a person is having a virus. We know in course of time, the effects will happen. And because the effect is there, we can say it must have been caused by something. So this is how, if we carefully analyze what is happening around us, there is a material cause and a material effect. But actually, the soul is not directly the cause for that. Yeah. The jiva associates with modes. Although the living entity is transcendental to the three material modes, sattva guna, rajoguna, and tamoguna, it comes to associate with that. And because of that, the body is changing. As it is, a dead body will not grow. But because the soul is come in contact with the body starts changing, and it causes its own happiness and distress. The way we utilize this body, depending on that, sometimes supposing I know how to use this laptop, I'm happy. But if supposing I don't know how to use it, I become miserable. So similarly, the way I use this body, that may either cause happiness or distress. The super soul is despite all this, the super soul is also in this body, but he is always enjoying. Just like on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna was smiling throughout, whereas Arjuna, sometimes he became depressed and sorrowful. So like that, the soul is concerned, it is in the body, and sometimes happy, sometimes distress, whereas the super soul is also in the same body, but he is always enjoying, and therefore is said to be the real Purusha. In other words, the soul cannot enjoy without the help of the super soul. And therefore, one should know Prakriti, material nature, Purusha, how the living entity and the super soul enjoy, and what are the three modes of material nature. With this knowledge, one can attain liberation. And what are the different methods of attaining liberation? Liberation means freedom from the three modes. The three modes can either produce happiness or they can produce distress. So, depending on how we utilize them. Then next talks about Krishna, about Jnana Chakru, the vision of knowledge. Just like Krishna gave Arjuna the divine vision to see the universal form, even to get some knowledge in this world, we have to attain the necessary qualifications. So that is said to be the Jnana Chakshu. This Jnana Chakshu is given by the spiritual master or the scriptures. Every entity is a combination of Prakriti and Purusha. A true seer's vision of Jiva, Prakriti, and Paramatma. So, who is the real person who can said to be in knowledge? Is one who knows about the living entity, the material nature, and the super soul. These three distinctions should be very clear. If you mix them up and not distinguish one from another, then we are not seeing the reality. And ultimately, we should understand how the soul is not the doer. That's a very important thing, because if the soul thinks that I am the doer, then he thinks I can be happy, or he thinks I am suffering. But if he realizes that I am only becoming the cause for my own happiness and distress, and because I am associating with this body, and then he realizes that he is not the doer, then he becomes happy. So this is the summary of this chapter. So in the middle 6 chapters of this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna displayed Bhakti Yoga, uh, along with the nature of the living entity, the Supreme Lord, matter, and how they are related. And the first 6 chapters showed how karma leads to bhakti, how through action you can attain bhakti. Basically, how to renounce the fruits of the action. The last 6 chapters will show how jnana leads to bhakti. That is, through knowledge, how can get devotion. That is, religion without philosophy becomes sentiment. That is, karma without knowledge becomes sentiment. And philosophy without religion becomes mental speculation. Some people cultivate knowledge, but they don't practice that. Then also it is not good. In the last 6 chapters, Krishna discusses jnana mixed with bhakti, because people cannot straight away come to pure devotion. So some people have to be brought to bhakti through action, and some people come to devotion through knowledge. But initially, whether it is karma or jnana, to get some success, it has to be bhakti has to be added to it. So therefore, jnana mixed with bhakti, while indirectly showing how kevala bhakti to be the supreme. So in the 13th chapter, Krishna speaks detailed knowledge of the body, the living entity, the jiva, and paramatma, and prakriti. So with this summary, we begin with Arjuna's 6 questions, which are very important. First thing is about prakriti. Prakriti means something which is constantly changing. That's why it says material nature. And Purusha means the enjoyer. And Kshetra means the field. Kshetragna means the knower of the field. And Jnana means knowledge. Jnaya means the object of knowledge. So these are the 6 questions he asks. And Krishna describes first about Kshetra, Kshetragna, and Jnanam. That is, what is the field of activity, who is the knower of the field, that is the body, or who is the knower of the body, and what is knowledge. So Kshetra refers to the body. Just like we say Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra means the battlefield. So Krishna, Kshetra is the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The soul is active by nature all the time. So in order to function in this world, it needs a kshetra or field. Just like if you want to play cricket or football, we need a cricket field or a football ground. So this material body is a product of matter or prakriti. How is this material body produced? By this combination of the ingredients that are found in prakriti. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence. Why is he entrapped? Entrapped means he is forced to occupy a body which is not his, because the soul access has his own spiritual body, but when you confine him to a material body, he becomes conditioned. According to his capacity to dominate material nature and enjoy sense gratification, he is given a body made of material senses, which is his field of activity. Just like if you have boarded a train, depending on how much money you have paid, you are either in the first class, second class, or third class. Similarly, depending on how much pious activities one has performed, he is given a different Brahma's body, or he can be an insect germ body, because each body has a particular nature of enjoyment. In the Brahma's body, you can enjoy in a certain way. but the amount of enjoyment is all the same because the souls are all the same in different bodies. Whether you sit in the first class compartment, second class compartment, third compartment, the destination is the same as long as you have bought the ticket for the same place. So it doesn't mean first class people go to one destination, second class, third class go to different destination. No, similarly, whatever body soul is having, because all the souls are same, the enjoyment is the same in the sense the capacity, but the type of enjoyment will be different. And Kshetrajna is the soul or the knower of the body. To the extent that you know the body, supposing I give this laptop to a young boy, he will use it up according to his capacity. A grown-up person will use the same laptop for a much better purpose. Similarly, depending on our knowledge of this body or the purpose of this body or how to use the body, we become the knower, the living entity. He is different from the body and is his proprietor. He is the owner. But what way is the owner? Just like a tenant is there. Original owner is there, tenant is there. The tenant is given some privilege to use the house. Similarly, we are given some limited capacity or ownership for this body. The kshetra or the field is a non-permanent material thing. This field is constantly changing. Why? Because the desires of the living entity are constantly changing. To accommodate the desires, the field is constantly has to change. However, the kshetra, the knower of the field, is eternal. The soul is concerned, once it attains this original nature, then it doesn't need this kshetra. But because he is conditioned by the three modes, just like a person is diseased, he is shifted to different wards in the hospital. It is not his home. But because he is in a diseased condition, he is put in different rooms in the hospital. Similarly, the soul, when he is conditioned by the three modes, he has to occupy a particular body. And those who think that the body is the self are not knowers of the field. But nevertheless, we have to be very clear that the soul is different from the body. Because the nature of the soul and the nature of the body are different. Now, Krishna is also knower of the body. I am also the knower of the field of all bodies. We know about our body only. But Krishna is concerned, he knows about all the bodies. Just like a owner is there, he has different houses. All the entire building belongs to him. One portion he has given to one tenant, another portion is given to another tenant. But one tenant may not know much about everything else. But the owner is concerned because everything belongs to him. He knows about all that is there in the building. Similarly, God is concerned, he knows about all the bodies, from the Brahma to the smallest ant in all the universes. And Kshetrajnam cha api mam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata. The body consists of what is the body? Consists of the senses. Senses means we have 5 knowledge acquiring and 5 working senses. And Krishna is Rishikesha, the controller of the senses of all the bodies. He has created them, so he knows how to control them. And out of the 2 knowers of the body, the super soul is the Pradhana Kshetrajna, the chief knower of everyone's body. So why he is able to know all the bodies? Because he is infallible. He can never fail. Whereas the living entity is fallible, the Lord is infallible. So he knows about all the bodies, whereas we know only limited about our own body. And the individual soul is fallible and subordinate. Compared to the knowledge of the super soul, the living entity's knowledge is very limited. Jnanam is perfect knowledge of material body and its knowers, the soul and the super soul. Who can be said to have perfect knowledge? One who knows about the body, about the living entity, and about the supreme soul. That is Krishna's opinion. Matam Mama, Krishna is saying. Real knowledge means understanding the separate existence of the Lord, Jiva, and Prakriti, though they mix together. Now, the point is that all 3 things are mixed. A normal person does not distinguish these 3 things. He sees only material nature. He is not even conscious that he is the soul. Or if someone is conscious of the soul, they are not conscious of the super soul. Or even if they are conscious of the soul, super soul, and they mix it up. So now Krishna talks about this 6 topics in detail. One is the composition of the body, the qualities of the body, the changes that the body undergoes, how the body comes into existence, What is the identity or swarupa of the knower of the body? That is the living entity. And what are the powers of the knower of the body? The soul also has some power, and the super soul has some power. Yat prabhava, it says. So, uh, so Krishna is quoting authorities because people, as I said, may not accept Krishna as the authority. So Krishna himself is quoting other authorities. This knowledge has been described in many sages in various Vedic writings, especially in Vedanta Sutra with all logic and reason. In other words, this need not be researched further. It's already established fact. Uh, so who has established this? People who have experienced it, who have studied the writings and realized it, they have given a confirmation. Rishibir Bahuda Gitam. Rishibi means sages, wise people. Bahuda means many. Gita means they have written. Chando Vir Vividai Pratak. Chanda means in particular this Vedanta. Brahma Sutra Padeshcheva, Vedanta Sutra. And Hetu Madhvir Vinishchitai, with all logic and reasoning. So we need not further research into that. So he is quoting the authority of sages and the scriptures. Now the body is composed of 5 great elements known as Mahabhuta. What are the 5 great elements? We will see that. Then false ego, ahankara means the sense that I am the doer. Although I am not the body, I start thinking that I am the body. Just like you are playing a drama, in that you are a villain or something hero, then you start thinking that I am the hero or I am the villain. Unless you do think like that, you cannot act like that. So although we are not the body, we start thinking that I am the body. So that is due to the ahankara. And buddhi, intelligence, and the unmanifested state of the 3 material modes. That is the living entities, the 3 modes of material nature. They are first in the unmanifest state and then they become manifest. So that is known as the pradhana or abhyakta. It is not visible. This earth, water, fire, air, and ether, initially they are not visible. When they mix together, then only they become visible. The 10 senses and the mind and the 5 sense objects, Indriya, Gochara. What are they? First, the 5 great elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So ether has the quality of sound, and air has the quality of sound and touch. Fire has the quality of form in addition. Water has one additional quality, taste. Earth has one additional quality, smell. In other words, earth has sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. So each of these 5 senses is made out of this subtle combination of earth, water, fire, and ether. Here, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. They are related to these 5 elements. And then we have the 5 working senses, the voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals, reproductive and digestive system, the 4 limbs, hind limbs, and the faculty to speak. The 5 sense objects. So, okay, I have the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. With that, what do I perceive? Smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Again, these are related to earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Then there is the mind or the intelligence and the false ego. These are the 3 subtle body. And then the pradhana means the unmanifested form of the 3 modes of material nature. So the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. In other words, what is the body made out of? By an analytical study of these 24 elements, one can understand the field of activity. In other words, some things are visible, some things are phenomenal and noumenal. Phenomenal means what we can perceive, and noumenal means what we have to infer. Just like now, what are the changes that happen to the body? So the qualities of the body include desire. Once you acquire a body, you like something or don't like something. For example, a dog is there, it likes something, it doesn't like something. And even among people, depending on the body, some people like something and some people don't like. The moment you acquire a body, depending on the body, you develop desire and hatred, happiness, distress. And the aggregate body evolving from the 24 elements, Sangata, the life symptoms, Chetana, and conviction, Driti. So each body has a set of convictions. Like, for example, dog starts thinking like a dog. A cat thinks like a cat, or a monkey thinks like a monkey, a human thinks like a monkey. So this is all conviction. It is convinced, yes, I am a dog or cat. And the qualities given here are not exhaustive. Other qualities include determination, uncertainty, faith, faithlessness, perseverance, lack of perseverance, humility, fear, and so on. So all these are coming because of the soul coming in contact with the body. All these are products of the mind. The mind makes you, the subtle body composed of the mind, it makes you acquire these qualities. In fact, all the people were born from Brahma through his meditation. When Brahma meditated, all the uh, living entities started evolving, and those living entities are associated with certain qualities. For example, uh, and the body undergoes 6 changes. First, you're talking about the qualities of the body, which are innumerable, because the soul can come in contact with different bodies. Accordingly, there are innumerable qualities. And then the body also undergoes 6 changes. No matter whose body it may be, Brahma's body or the smallest of the small. First is, it takes birth. It comes into existence, it grows, then it remains at some stage for some time. Then it produces byproducts, and it gradually declines or gets old and eventually dies or becomes unmanifest. This is pertaining to the body. Now, next, Krishna is talking about the process of acquiring knowledge. Now that we have a body, how does the soul go about getting knowledge about himself, about this world, and other living entities? So, Jnanam is knowledge of body, soul, and super soul. Repeatedly, we are telling this thing. However, the real process of acquiring that knowledge is to cultivate saintly qualities, beginning with humility. Now, if we have to acquire this knowledge, we have to develop some qualities. Just like if you want to do some course, you have to have some necessary qualifications. So in the next 5 verses, Krishna describes different aspects of saintly character. In other words, by practice, once you practice using the body in a certain way, then you will develop some qualities through which you will get knowledge. Just like if I give a book to you, immediately you are not going to understand anything. You have to learn to use the book in a certain way, then you will get the benefit of the book. Similarly, even if you have the body, unless you practice using the body in a certain way, you will not develop the certain qualities. Just like so many ingredients are there when you prepare some food, you have to mix them and do something with them, and then only you will get the taste out of it. So the soul with these characteristics can disentangle himself from the material body, kshetra, and attain liberation. In other words, he can use the body for the best possible way. Supposing you're driving an aircraft, if you drive the aircraft in a certain way, then you will go up in the air. Similarly, when you use the body in a certain way, then you can elevate your consciousness. Thus, the following are the aspects of knowledge and liberation. First, these 20 elements of knowledge. In other words, you have to develop these 20 qualities to get knowledge about the body and the soul and the super soul. What are they? Because of time, I'm going fast. Amanitva means humility, not expecting any respect, because you know the limitations of a body, and you are not the body, and you also know that all souls are more or less same. So you should not expect, supposing you have 2 people using 2 different cars, one may be expensive, one less expensive, but nevertheless you don't respect a person based on his car. If a person is a very qualified person and he is using a less expensive car, you respect, at least a sensible person will respect the person rather than the car he's using. Similarly, we have to respect the soul and not the body is not the main. So humility is no expectation of respect. Adambitva means, damba means pride, pridelessness, not being anxious to be famous. And ahimsa means non-violence, not putting others into distress, that is mentally and physically. Shanti means tolerance. Tolerance means bearing insults and dishonor. So once you acquire this body, it's not that always people will praise you. There will be some people who will criticize you, find fault with you. Anyway, that is pertaining to the body you have acquired. Supposing you have bought a car, some people will appreciate that car, some people will point out some defects in that. So that is not pertaining to you. It is pertaining to the body you have chosen. And Arjava means simplicity. Simplicity means straightforwardness and non-diplomatic. Non-diplomatic means uh, you try to exploit the situation to your favor. And Acharya Upasanam. Acharya means bona fide guru. Upasanam means serving him without motivation. Here it says particularly. And Shaucha means cleanliness, both internal, that is the mind, and external, that is body. And Sthairiam means steadiness, determination to progress in spiritual life. Atma Vinigraha, self-control. Vinigraha means self, Atma means self, Vinigraha means control, rejecting unfavorable things. Then renunciation of the objects of sense gratification. Indriya Arteshu. Indriya Arteshu Vairagyam. That is, the senses are always telling us to enjoy in many different ways. You can enjoy, but you should know what to enjoy, how to enjoy, why to enjoy. Supposing you see everything and you try to enjoy everything you see, everything you smell, everything you touch or taste, or everything you hear, you end up nowhere. So that is renunciation or control over the senses. Anahankara, no false ego, no identification with the body. You should know, yes, I am the soul, I am in a body, the body is different from me. Janma Mrityu Jaravayadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. You should be aware of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. You know that these are problems. You cannot deny them. You cannot say, I don't care about this. I don't care about birth, death, old age. No, you have to take note of that because you know that they are going to be causes of suffering for everyone. And therefore, you have to tackle this problem. Asaktir Anabhishvanga Putradara Grihadishu. Asaktir means detachment. Asakti means detachment. And Anabhishvanga means freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest. In other words, what does it entanglement mean? Doesn't mean you have to reject this children, wife, home, and rest. What it means, you should not get overly attached. There is a purpose. Supposing you take salt, you have to know how much salt to put, sugar, and whatever. Similarly, you should know how to deal with the children, wife, home, and not pamper them too much. Nityam cha samachittatvam ishto nishtopapatishu. That is even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, because pleasant and unpleasant events are concomitant factor of this world. There's always that's the nature of the world, but we should be even-minded, balanced. And Mayi Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyavicharani. So this is the main quality among all these 20 qualities. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me with undeviated attention. Mayi means unto me. Cha Ananyena Yogena. Ananyena Yoga means unalloyed devotion. And Avyavicharani means with undeviating attention. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me with undeviated attention. So this is the key quality which one should develop. Then these other qualities will naturally follow. What are the remaining? Vivikta Desha Sevitvam. Secluded living. So what does secluded living means? It is not possible, especially in this modern world. You cannot live in isolation. We have to live with people, but just like you are safeguarding in the pandemic, we are putting social distancing or mask and this and that. We can't avoid people, but we should know how to protect ourselves. So similarly, we have to live in this world, but at the same time, not take the bad in others, but take the good in others. So that is the Vivikta Sevitvam. Aratir Jana Samsati. Arati means detachment. Rati means attachment. Arati means detachment. What should be detached from? General mass of people. Because the general mass of people, they may not be thinking of our welfare all the time. You can't expect everyone to think about your welfare. So you cannot go and try to share your problems with everyone. And Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, accepting the importance of self-realization, Tattva Jnanata Darshanam, philosophical search of the absolute truth, and Eta Jnanam Iti Proktam. All these I declare to be knowledge. And what does he say? Ajnanam yad yato anyata. And besides this, whatever there may be, is ignorance. If you don't have these 20 qualities and you may have everything else, that is still considered to be ignorance, because it's not going to help you understand yourself, that is the soul or the body or the super soul. So now next we go to the, what is it? What is the object of knowledge? Okay, you develop these qualities and you say with that you get knowledge. If your knowledge means you have to have these 20 qualities, with that, what is the benefit I'm going to get? It takes the real object of knowledge are Jivatma, the individual soul, and Paramatma. Ultimately, the purpose of the body is to understand about yourself, that is the soul, and the super soul who is always accompanying the soul despite the change of the bodies. And by knowing the knowable, Nyayam, you will attain liberation. In other words, you will get the best out of this body. And why is the aircraft there? The aircraft is there to help you fly up. Similarly, the body is there to elevate you, provided you have the proper knowledge of who you are and who is the super soul. Now, Brahman, the spirit soul, is beginningless, subordinate to me, Anadi Mat Param Brahma, and lies beyond the cause and effect of this world. In this material world, there's always a cause and effect. The cause and effect are separated by time. So, whereas the soul is concerned, there's no cause and effect. The material world, everything has a cause and effect. Some effect is there, you immediately start looking for the cause. And the moment the cause is there, you start waiting for the effect. All this is a big problem for us. But in this soul is concerned, it is not beyond this cause and effect, or the super soul is also beyond the cause. Now, next Krishna talks about the qualities of the super soul. What is that? Sarvata Pani Padam. Everywhere are his hands and legs. We have hands and legs which are limited reach is there. But God is having hands and legs. He can reach out to the entire universe. Sarvato Kishiro Mukam. Everywhere is eyes, heads, and face. Just as we have our eyes, heads with which we get knowledge or information and look in different directions, the super soul is able to see everything and know everything. And Sarvata Shruti Malloke. Everywhere are his ears. He is able to hear everything. We can hear only limited range, but he can hear what everyone is speaking. Sarvam Avritya Tishtati is all pervading through knowledge. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, he is the source of all senses. Sarvendriya means all senses. Gunabhasam means the source. Sarvendriya Vivarjitam, he is devoid of material senses. So what kind of senses? We have a body which has material senses, but he has spiritual senses. And Asaktam Sarva Brit he is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all. Sarva Brit means maintainer. Sarva Brit means he is able to maintain everything, both the material and spiritual. How is he able to do? Because he is Asaktam, unattached. When we become attached, we become exhausted. We are trying to maintain people. We are not able to. A prime minister is there, he is unattached in one sense. That's why he is able to maintain a whole country. Whereas we have attachment, so we are able to maintain within a particular limit. Nirgunam Guna Bhoktrucha. Nirguna means he is transcendental to the three modes. And Guna Bhoktra means Nirguna Guna Bhoktra. Bhoktra means the master of the modes. He is able to control these three modes effectively. Bahir Antascha Bhutanam. Bahir means outside, Antas means inside. He is outside and inside of all. Acharam Charam. Acharam is moving and non-moving. Moving means the things which move from place to place. Non-moving means sometimes mountains also, or even the trees and plants. He knows inside and outside. He moves and he doesn't move. Sukshmatvat tad abhigneyam. Sukshmat means subtle. Abhigneyam is not knowable. Durastam cha antike. Durastam means both far and near. Why? Because we have material senses, we are not able to perceive him. He is never divided, although he appears to be divided among all beings. Just like a sun is there, if you see the reflection in 10 pots or 10 mirrors, it looks like the sun is in all the mirrors or all the pots of water. But we know for a fact that the sun is only one. So the sun, the super soul, appears to be present in all the bodies, although he is only one. And Bhuta Bhritracha Nyaya. He is the Bhuta Bhrit means maintainer of all beings. Nyaya means also the and Grasishnu. Grasishnu means destroyer. What does he destroy? He destroys the ignorance, or destroys the body, which is the cause of ignorance. Prabhu Vishnu means the creator. He is the one who gives the body to give us knowledge, another type of knowledge through time, Kar Shakti. Jyotisamapi Tak Jyotis, source of all light, all luminous objects. And Tamasa Paramuchyate. Tamasa means ignorance, darkness. Param means is beyond the darkness of matter. In this world, we become covered by ignorance, but he is never happens to him. Jnanam, Jnayam, Jnanagamyam. Jnanam means knowledge, Jnayam means object of knowledge, and Jnanagamyam means the goal of knowledge. Now, Hridi Sarvasya Vistitam. He is situated in everyone's heart. Heart here means the consciousness. He is the one who is giving us awareness. So, what is the qualification to understand the super soul? Next, we talk about Prakriti, Purusha, and the Yuna. How this living entity and material nature, the body, and the super soul, who are also Purusha, they come together. First thing we have to understand is both the Prakriti and Purusha are eternal. Otherwise, if one is eternal and one is temporary, at some point it is separate, isn't it? But because both are eternal, Prakriti, material nature, as well as the living entity and super soul are all eternal. First, that is the fact. They are beginningless. And why? Because the Lord has, these are all part of the Krishna, God's energy. One is the Jiva Prakriti and Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti. And their transformations, Vikaran and the material modes, are products of material nature. So, what is the mystery of this material creation? So, actually, this material nature and the living entities are residing in the body of Mahavishnu first. And at the time of creation, they were manifested and the living entities again given a chance to act in the material world. So the material Mahavishnu brings them together. So what is the role of Prakriti and the roles of the Jiva? Just like if I'm moving from place to place, I am the driver and the vehicle is the driven. This is a very important word. Karya Karana Kartrutve. Karya Karana. Karya means this. Prakriti or the material nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects. Material nature actually it is one only, but it is split up into cause and effect. They look separate, but actually they are part of the same thing. Just like the moment the virus is there in the body, we know in short course of time effect is going to come. Or if you see the effect, you know that is been caused by something. Prakriti or material nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects. Karya Karana Kartrutve Hetur Prakritir Uchyate. So this has to be very clearly understood that the effect is there in the cause, and cause is there in the effect. Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoktrutve Hetur Uchyate. The Purusha, the living entity, is the cause of his own happiness and distress due to his enjoying propensity. Now, because the material nature has this feature of cause and effect, but because that material nature has this feature, when the living entity tries to get happiness from this, it immediately becomes distress. That is the Purusha, the living entity, is the cause of his own happiness due to his enjoying propensity. The desire is the cause for, in other words, the moment the desire is there, and because the material nature has this feature of cause and effect, the desire becomes split up into happiness and distress. Just like, a live wire of electricity is there. The moment you touch it, it is there for a purpose. But when you touch it, it gives a shock. For you, it is a shock. For the instrument, the current is supplying and it is used for a purpose. So relation between Jiva and Prakriti. Prakriti is the cause of the Jiva's unfortunate condition in this world. By offering the body, the senses which produce happiness and distress. In one sense, the soul is unfortunate because he doesn't need the body, but because of his desire, he, just like nobody wants to go to the hospital, but because we had some sickness, we are forced to be in the hospital. Similarly, the living entity doesn't need this material nature to be enjoy or be the knower, but because of some weakness, he is put into a body which becomes the cause of his suffering or enjoyment. So, and not only that, the presiding deities of the senses, Kartra, uh, uh, Jiva suffers and enjoys due to his misidentification of the body produced by the Prakriti. Just like you're watching a movie, in that movie there's some hero or villain or whatever. Once you're watching the movie, you identify with that person and start enjoying or suffering. So, and Jiva's association with modes and his transmigration. So this association with this happiness and suffering, it makes us go through different bodies, which are actually different types of experiences. Actually, the soul and body are never together. But just like when you're watching a movie, you are in that movie. Similarly, the soul and body can never be together, but because of the ego, in the dream, for example, in the dream, you see so many things and you think it's happening to you, but once you wake up, you see nothing is there. Similarly, the soul, out of his ego, his things start thinking with the body, and the body goes through these changes, and then he thinks the change is happening to me. The living entity situated in the material body thinks he is enjoying in the three modes, bona, prakriti. This is due to his association with the three material modes. Thus, he meets with good and evil in various species. So, in one sense, the body is not the cause for the suffering, but because of its association with the body, it produces happiness or distress. So, basically, the desire, depending on the desires you cultivate, you are given a different particular body, and through that body, you either enjoy or suffer, and both. So, now the super soul is also in the same body, but he is not suffering. So, how is that? Just like you have an examination paper, and a person has prepared well for the exam, then for him he is enjoying the writing the exam. But for a person who is not prepared for the exam, the same question paper is source of his misery. The same body, for one it becomes the source of misery, that is the living entity who has desires, whereas the super soul who is satisfied in himself, he doesn't get any misery from the body. What is he doing there then? If I am only enjoying and suffering, what is the role of the super soul? He is the overseer, that is Upadrishta, permitters of the Jiva's actions, Anumanta, and the Supreme Master, Bhatta, Bhokta, enjoyer, and proprietor, Maheshwara. Upadrishtanumanta cha Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara, Paramatmiti Chapyukto, Dehesmin Purusha Para. This is a very important verse. What is the super soul doing? He is overseeing. And Anumanta, he is sanctioning. Because the living entity wants to enjoy in a certain way. And therefore, in a regulated way, the super soul allows him to enjoy and learn through experience. And Bharta means master, enjoyer, Bhokta, and proprietor, the Maheshwara. So, what is the result of knowing about the super soul? He who knows about Prakriti, Purusha, and the modes will surely attain liberation from repetitive. In other words, if you don't even understand the problem, there's no question of solving it. At least you should begin to know what is the problem, what is the solution, so that you can apply that and get out of it. So at least you should know that this is the soul, this is the body, this is the super soul, and the body is the cause of suffering, and the super soul is the cause for freedom from the suffering. So this is the result of this knowledge. Now, so some people, they adopt some different methods to solve the problem. So some see Paramatma through meditation, dhyana, Ashtanga, others by cultivation of knowledge, Sankhya, or Jnana Yoga, and still others by working without fruitive desire, Nishkama Karma Yoga. So how do we realize the Paramatma? There are three ways. One is the meditation, Ashtanga Yoga, one is through cultivation of knowledge or Jnana Yoga, or one is through cultivation of Nishkama Karma Yoga or detachment from the fruitive desires. Now, then how does one cultivate bhakti? The same super soul can be also realized through bhakti. So knowledge, bhakti begins with hearing. That is very important. Others, though not having knowledge, Ajanata, worship the Supreme Lord upon hearing about him. So if you try to cultivate knowledge of the super soul through reading or through work or through dhyana, it's going to take a very long time. So if the Lord himself is telling about himself and you hear it, then that is better. They surpass the path of birth and death due to the faithful hearing. Shruti Parayana from authority. So this is the solution. Solution is, if you want to know the super soul, you have to hear from him. Like Brahma also, he could not see the Lord first. When he heard the Lord, then he could see the Lord. So that's why now, for example, we are hearing about Bhagavad Gita, although we cannot see God and cannot see how he is managing the entire creation. By hearing first about it, then we start seeing. Supposing you're a medical student, first you hear about it and then only you start performing an operation and you can see it. If straight away you put him in the operation table, then he will not do a mess because he has not heard it properly. Then, so how to attain this jnana chakshur, vision of knowledge? So combination of Prakriti and Purusha. Every entity moving and non-moving is the material existence, only a combination of the field of activity and the knower of the field. So some knowledge you acquire through the body, some knowledge has to acquire through the soul. And when these two are put together, then only we can see things clearly. That's what Krishna told in the 7th chapter also about noumenal and phenomenal knowledge. So one who has the true vision, how does he see? Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. Super soul is equally disposed to all living entities. Tishtantam Parameshwaram is residing in the hearts of all. So, a person who has real knowledge is able to realize that the super soul is equally disposed to all living entities. In other words, he is equally sanctioning everyone. He is equally doing justice to all. He is residing in the hearts of, in other words, he is fully conscious about all living entities. He is indestructible, situated in the destructible bodies. The soul, for example, it may forget because it is fallible, but the super soul never forgets. In fact, it remains the soul in each body. And one who sees this like this actually sees. In other words, how important it is to see the Paramatma. Just like Arjuna could take notice of Krishna and then he could solve his problem on the battlefield. So when we take note of God in our life, then we can understand ourselves, we can understand this material nature. So that is true vision. So what is the result of such material vision? There is no degradation. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavastitam ishwaram na yanas atmanatmanam tato yati param gati. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere. In other words, if you are confident that the soul, super soul is going to guide all the living entities, does not degrade himself by his deviating mind, thus he attains the spiritual world. He is always looking for a direction from the super soul rather than trying to get direction from the mind and the senses. Just like if you are flying an aircraft, you see outside and it looks the distance may be so much, but you cannot trust your eyes. Instead, you have to trust the instruments. Similarly, we cannot depend on our mind and the senses to get knowledge. We have to depend on the super soul to acquire this knowledge. And how to get knowledge from the super soul? Through hearing. And first thing is, we have to understand that Prakriti is doing what the soul is, what has the soul has to do, and what is the body doing. This distinction should be very clear. The soul can only do one thing, it can only change its desires. The body is there, it's only implementing those desires. So if you choose something, then the body will put you in trouble. The Prakriti is do all material activities are performed with body which is created of Prakriti. Jiva is non-doer, the self does nothing. One who sees like this actually sees. So then one may ask, how is the material nature doing? Because the super soul is controlling material nature. And how is the super soul controlling? According to our desire. If you want something, the super soul will sanction that. So if we look to the Paramatma, then he will change the functioning of the body. But if you don't look at the Paramatma, he will operate the body in a certain way. So this has to be very clearly understood. The body is not the doer, the material nature is doer. And how the material nature is working? Because the super soul is controlling material nature according to the desires of the living entities. So if we change our desires, then the super soul will control the material body or material nature accordingly. Now, the soul is the non-doer, not entangled. Soul is transcendental, beginningless, endless, imperishable, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite being seated in material body, the soul does not do anything and is not entangled. So in other words, the soul can use this body to become free from all suffering if it takes help of the super soul. In any case, the soul never mixes with matter. Just like in a dream, sometimes we're enjoying, sometimes we're suffering. But once you wake up, you realize that it has nothing to do with you. So although momentarily the soul seems to be suffering in the body, it can never suffer, or it can never be in ignorance, or it can never become temporary. So now some people think that there are different souls in, material vision see separate identities due to different material bodies. So we distinguish one soul from another based on the bodies. That is a material vision. But the spiritual vision is to see that the soul in all the bodies are of the same characteristics, Satchit Ananda, and that the super soul is also different from the body. The soul eliminates the entire body by consciousness. How did you know that the soul is there in the body? Because that is how the body is able to become conscious, just as the sun illuminates the whole universe. Nevertheless, the consciousness is not produced by matter. In other words, the soul cannot be produced by combining matter. Or awareness, consciousness is not there in the body itself. It is because of the presence of the soul. So what is the summary of this chapter? Kshetrak kshetraknyor evam antaram jnana chaksha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye vidur yanti te param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knowers of the body, that is the living entity and the super soul, also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain the supreme goal. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Sorry, we got a bit delayed because the break in the initial. So we'll do this same chapter in detail, starting Monday to Friday, 7 to 8 o'clock in both English and Hindi session. So please join us during the following week. So in summary, we saw about Arjuna's 6 questions about Prakriti, material nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, that is the living entity and the supreme soul, Kshetra, or the body, and Kshetragna means the knower of the body, and Jnana means knowledge, and Jnaya means object of knowledge. Krishna has described about the Kshetra, the body, Kshetragna, the soul, and super soul. Knowledge means all that 20 qualities which are required for knowledge. The process of acquiring that knowledge is to develop those qualities, particularly devotion. And the object of knowledge is what is to be known is the soul and the super soul. Then Krishna talked about the qualities of the super soul, and then how these Prakriti Purusha and come together because of these desires of the living entities. And the different methods of liberation, that is through jnana, karma, or knowledge, or through devotion. And one who acquires this knowledge is able to distinguish between the body, the soul, and the super soul. In this way, he gets all happiness. Thank you very much. We'll meet again. How question is here? How different prakriti with jiva interact with each other based on desires? Is it only karma? I don't understand the question. So as I said, the living entity has desires based on past activities. The karma is the cause for the different desires. Supposing you have an experience in your previous life that creates a particular desire, and that desire is produced due to ignorance. And according to your desire, the super soul is aware of your desires, and then he brings you in contact with nature so that you can fulfill that desire. So the desire is produced due to ignorance, and the ignorance is produced due to past activity. And because of the desire, the super soul is aware of those desires, and it brings you in contact with material nature in such a way that you experience that desire and you eventually understand that is the cause for your suffering. Then you give up the desire and hanker for something else. And again, the super soul arranges you to come in contact with another aspect of material nature. Then again, you think you are enjoying, and then you think you are suffering. So, like this, slowly, when the soul becomes tired of this, uh, uh, satisfying his desires by coming in contact with material nature, he looks towards the super soul for guidance. Then, when he looks towards the super soul, then he becomes happy like the super soul. Happiness comes from realizing how this nature is the cause for my suffering. Although it looks like that it will be the cause for my happiness, it becomes the cause for my distress. So therefore, I have to uh, look beyond these three modes of material nature. So that you that comes through hearing from the super soul, just like Arjuna is hearing from Krishna, and then that became the cause for his relief from suffering. So whoever was in the battlefield, because they did not hear Krishna, this battlefield became the cause for suffering. So this body is also considered to a field, kshetra. So this Kurukshetra is like a battlefield. It became the cause for suffering for people who did not hear Krishna. And the same battlefield became the cause for happiness for Arjuna because he heard from Krishna. So similarly, this body can become the cause for our suffering if we ignore the super soul. And if we use the super soul, then this body can become the cause for our happiness. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. We'll meet again next week. Panchakalpatarapyascha, Kripasindhubhyascha, Patitaनां